Lovely to see you all. I know many of you, or I am fortunate enough to know of your organisations. For those who don't know me, my name is Katrina Morgan. I work in the Community Department in Galway City Council, and I'm also currently the Chief Officer of the Galway City LCDC, and that's the Local Community Development Committee that's in situ in Galway City. And it's that committee that has oversight in relation to the Community Enhancement Programme. So you will see and hear references to the LCDC as we go through the slides. What I'm going to do is, some of you or your organisations may be familiar with the Community Enhancement Programme, but I'm just going to go through just some of the key, I suppose, points on the programme, and then some of the key details in relation to the application process, because it is currently open for applications. And then, as Anne said, if there are any queries or questions, we can take them either through chat or take them at the end. And if I'm not able to answer them, we'll take details and I'll come back if that's okay. So we'll just start, and again has the first slide up there. So again, for those who may not know, it's the Community Enhancement Programme. It's running again for 2020. This is actually our third year of managing and administering the Community Enhancement Programme for Galway City. So as always, it's very welcome. It's a little bit late in the year for the funding to come, but however, we are very welcome of it, and we will gladly take it and administer it out on behalf of Galway City. In terms of the programme itself, those who are eligible to apply are community groups, organisations, and within that, voluntary groups and organisations fall within that. So while we talk about community, we also talk, it is community and voluntary. So again, it's community and voluntary groups and organisations within the Galway City administrative area, and I suppose that's a key point in terms of my role and remit with Galway City Council. And really the purpose of the programme, very similar to previous years, is really to look and to try and enhance or develop facilities that are in Galway City that are either in a disadvantaged area or working and primarily serving a disadvantaged or a target group. Again, in terms of Galway City, that is confined to our city administrative area. I understand our colleagues in Galway County Council are going to be opening their programme later on this week. So again, if you are here with a group or an organisation and you have an affiliate in the county, again, keep an eye open for the county scheme. It will open, I think, later on this week. Again, in terms of Galway City, the LCDC, the Local Community Development Committee, has been allocated funding of 55,368 for this year. Now, that is considerably less than what we had received in the last 2 years. But bear in mind, as we all know, we are still within the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic. We are halfway through the year. So even the very kind of nature of the programme last year and the previous year in terms of enhancing community centres, facilities, buildings, extensions, I mean, a lot of that work can't happen, and we're all very aware of why and the safety reasons around that. So again, while the funding amount is reduced for the city, it still is very, very welcome, and I don't see any issue with us, administering that out across Galway City. As per previous years, the department, and when we refer to the department, in this case we refer to the Department of Rural and Community Development. They are the funding body that are giving us this fund. So again, they have recommended that the LCDC would ring fence a small amount of this funding in the form of small capital grants. So they would be typically within the region of €1,000. And I suppose the aim of that is really, you know, not to allow sort of bigger projects to sort of work up the fund and swallow up that funding. And it is to allow, I suppose, an amount of funding to be sort of left aside or ring-fenced for smaller projects that are maybe just getting off the ground and maybe just need that little bit of kickstart or whatever. That is still going to apply this year. Again, that's going to be based on the level of demand and the level of interest that we see, you know, as we work through the call. Again, the programme, it can fund in total, or it can partially fund. So again, you know, if you're looking to do a bigger project, again, the fund can be used to fund an element of that if you're successful, or it can go towards a larger scale project. Again, capital expenditure is the key here, and obviously the LCDC have put in place a priority for this year that, again, capital expenditure on adaptations or any equipment that is needed as a result of COVID-19 will be eligible. And again, that's a key thing, again, given the context of where we are, where the sector is within COVID-19. That is something to sort of look at and maybe factor in if you're thinking about putting in an application. And again, just for your information, in terms of our administration and our drawdown, the grant will have to be drawn down by that date in early December. And again, that just allows us to draw down and have it spent by the end of the year. Within the guidelines on the application forms, and again, I know Anne in the Galway City Community Network has circulated those out, and they are on the link at the end of my slide on our website, galwaycity.ie. But within both the application and forms and the guidelines, they do speak very clearly to our local economic and community plan. And again, I know many of you will have been involved with us and will have come through the recent exercise that we've done in terms of our implementation plan for the last 2 years. So again, projects and proposals that speak to the LECP and will help us implement some of the key projects that are in our implementation plan. And again, both links are on this slide and in our application form. I mean, they are welcome. And again, you know, that's something to be aware of, and that's something to be mindful of if and when you're looking to put in a proposal or an application form. And again, in terms of who's eligible to apply, again, any not-for-profit community or voluntary group or organisation can apply. And obviously, in line with previous programmes, commercial organisations or individuals on their own are not eligible to apply for funding on the programme. Again, as I mentioned, just speaking to our local economic and community plan, and again, it's just for reference, and I know many of you will have come through the work that we've done on the implementation plan, but again, our work is being focused around our 5 high-level goals. And again, further details and further projects that have come through our implementation plan are included in those links. But again, we're looking at projects and proposals that speak to our high-level goals and that will assist us in delivering out the actions that we have collectively identified for the rest of this year. So again, it's reference, it's to note, and again, the links are included in the slide and in the guidelines. Again, in terms of the programme for this year, and again, this is all outlined in the guidelines. Again, in terms of what types of capital projects could receive funding under the programme, and again, this is a national programme, so Galway City LCDC felt, you know, that again we would leave these types of projects there because, you know, they do speak to kind of a range of projects. They will speak to a range and a diversity of groups. So again, you're looking at the types of capital projects that would see works going into the development or the renovations of community centres, obviously works on community amenities, obviously the development of play or recreational spaces, obviously any types of initiatives or projects that will look to increase or improve energy efficiency of works, Obviously the purchase of equipment, and obviously that's equipment of a capital nature. And then very importantly, and as a priority, adaptations or equipment that is needed either by your group or your organisation within the community and voluntary sector that is needed as a result of COVID-19. They will be eligible of a capital nature and they will be prioritised. Obviously, the flip of that then is what's not eligible for funding. And again, very similar to the programme in previous years. Again, any project that's not keeping within the ethos of the programme, any project that has an element of a day-to-day expense or an operating cost, again, that's not of a capital nature, so that's not going to be eligible. Obviously, the employment costs, again, not eligible. Obviously, legal, routine, project management fees, all those types of consultancy and fees, they aren't seen as a capital item or capital expenditure. And again, anything that's of a private or a commercial operation, again, will not be eligible for funding. In terms of some of the programme requirements, and again, many of you will have been fortunate to have received funding from us, maybe under the Community Enhancement Programme last year or even in 2018. And while we outline the programme requirements, I do have to say that they're not as onerous, but I think it's very important to sort of to outline them and step them out and speak through them at this particular point. However, if your project following assessment and approval is successful, I have to say within our letter of offer, we are very clear in terms of what the requirements are, and we will work with your group at that stage. But I think it's important to just to speak to these so that you're aware of these from the outset. Obviously, in terms of procurement and public funding, there is the requirement to submit a quotation or an estimate with your project. And again, obviously, in terms of our own procurement limits within Galway City Council, we've outlined two of the kind of, I suppose, more relevant bands, for want of a better word. So again, if you're looking to get in a project and the cost of that is up to €3,000, then one written quotation or one written estimate will suffice, but that has to be included and submitted with your application form. Obviously, if your proposal project is coming in at a slightly higher value, and again, as an example, over 3,000 but under 6,500, then obviously you have to include a minimum of 3 written quotations. And again, they have to come in at an application stage. Obviously, for all other cases, and if you have any other queries, you can email or phone us, and again, we will be able to answer or address that. Again, given the overall size of the fund, and given the nature of where the priority area is, I feel those two are the most relevant bands. But again, I'm not trying to preclude anybody from coming in at a higher level. And again, if you are and you have a query on what you have to submit, please contact the office. But again, that does have to be submitted at application stage. In terms of statutory consents, and again, I don't see this as being, I suppose, a big onus in terms of this programme, and I'm speaking from experience in terms of last year and the previous year. But again, if you are looking for a much larger scale project, obviously if permissions or consents are required, then they will be needed and they will need to be submitted as well. In terms of insurance, and again, this is only if your project is approved. We obviously do not require you to have insurances or any indemnities with us at this stage, but obviously as we work through the approval process with you, and if you're successful and you're going into a grant aid with us, we will work through the insurances and the requirements with you at that stage. Obviously, as with all public funding, there is a requirement in relation to the acknowledgement of funding. There are a couple of logos and acknowledgements that are required. But again, if you're successful, we do work through that with you. We will give you guidance depending on the nature and the type of your project. We will provide you with logos and assistance as we work through the stage with you. And obviously, match funding is not a requirement under the programme, but obviously if you have a proposal and you have an element of match funding that you want to contribute to it, well, obviously that's very welcome as well. But again, it's not a requirement at this stage. sorry if these seem a little bit small, but maybe when they're shared, they might maybe not look as kind of daunting. So again, in terms of the actual programme itself, the programme will be evaluated, or applications, sorry, when they come in, they will be evaluated by the LCDC, and that obviously it's a subgroup of the LCDC that will come together, and obviously they will review and assess all of the applications, again, I suppose in the first instance to ensure eligibility, and then obviously to ensure that they are targeting disadvantaged and linked and assisting in terms of the local economic and community plan. In terms of the projects, again, as well, there's just some, I suppose, some points there in terms of how the projects may be judged. And again, this is some of the assessment criteria that would have been used last year and would have been used the previous year. But again, I suppose the key thing that I'd like to say for this year is that really, you know, it's while it's around looking at, you know, improving how your facility is going to operate and maybe look to make improvements and savings and all of the rest, really the key thing is to demonstrate how your facility and how your service will open or reopen as a result of COVID-19. And I think if you speak clearly on that and you demonstrate that again, that is going to be a priority area. Now, not every community and not every group may need that. So again, I'm not trying to preclude or to sway anyone. But again, that area has been identified as a priority. But again, there's some points there that the subcommittee of the LCDC would have considered as part of their assessment last year and the previous year. And again, they do speak to questions in the application form. So it does give you a sense when you're putting forward your proposal, what is going to be looked for and how it is going to be evaluated. It is going to be competitive. I mean, that's the beauty of the community and voluntary sector within the city. We have a lot of very active groups. We have a lot of very active groups looking to open and reopen at this point in time. So you know, it will be competitive. So it is a case of putting your best project and your best proposal forward as well. I can't even read my own slides, which is not very good. But again, just some of the points there. So again, just some of the points that I touched on from the earlier point was that again, under the programme, that the LCDC, or the intention is there that 30% of the funding would be ring-fenced for smaller scale projects. Now, that is all dependent on the demand for smaller scale projects and the amount of projects that come in at €1,000 or not. But I suppose it's important to make that point, because if there are some groups that are just looking to start out or looking to just get that small bit of support, the programme may be able to assist you in that. Again, as well, like with previous programmes, again, if you're looking to apply for one element, that's totally acceptable as well. Or obviously, if you're looking to apply for a full project, that's obviously eligible as well. With previous years, we did speak on the point that there was no limit to the number of applications, you know, for different projects from the same organisation, and you know, we're still leaving that point in there. But again, you know, we have a limited fund. You know, it's 55,000 in total for the city. We are aware of, you know, quite a lot of activity now happening again, and a lot of communities looking to get back together again and to refocus and reform. So again, you know, if you're looking to put in for a number of projects, I would suggest you would be prudent in that approach, and you would even maybe prioritise your projects. Because, you know, if you're going to apply for 2 or 3 and the evaluation committee don't know what your order or what your rankings are, you may not get the one that you want to prioritise. So that's if your organisation is looking to bid for a couple, I would suggest and recommend that you would self-prioritise those, and then that will feed into the assessment as well. Again, it's 100% exchequer funding. So again, you are free to leverage funding in from other sources. There's no match funding requirement. But again, if you have that little bit of capital yourself or a little bit of income that you want to put in towards the project, that would obviously be very welcome. And again, within the applications, and this might seem like a very kind of a basic point, but it is a point that we have picked up on from the previous years. You must state a specific amount. So you must state the amount that you're looking for. We have seen, over a couple of years and a couple of runs at this, that really great projects and really great applications come in, but we have no idea how much they're looking for. And while we go back and we will seek clarifications, it's just not that clear. So again, make it very clear, and state very clearly exactly how much money you're looking for and exactly what the purpose of that is. So in terms then of the application process, so we are currently open. It opened for applications, I think maybe last week at this stage. So again, we are open now for applications. So this is very timely in terms of the window, and even just to meet you and to be able to do this kind of quick presentation on it with yourselves. Again, the application form is very simple, I think, fairly simple, I think, compared to other programs. And again, it's similar to last year and similar to the previous years. So, if you have that fortune and that familiarity, you will recognise it. Again, you must ensure that the application is fully complete, and that means, all sections completed, signed, and obviously if you're doing it online and you're not able to sign it, you can just insert either a digital signature or put it in on the email that it has been signed and supported by your group or your organisation. And also then as well, you must submit the supporting documentation. And at this stage, in terms of the supporting documentation, all that we require is the quotation, and again, that's in line with what you're looking for and the kind of funding amounts, that the thresholds that you're hitting at that point in time. The closing date for receipt of applications is Friday the 7th of August at 5 p.m. There is the facility this year, and the link is there on the slide, to do your application online. We would encourage that, we would welcome that as well. And again, you can obviously start your application process, save it and come back to it. Or obviously you can complete the application by form, and you can email that in as well. And again, the email address is on the application form and the guidelines. Our preference is not to receive them in hard copy. Our preference is to receive them either online or to receive them by email. And that just around our safety and our own working arrangements in the office. So again, we would ask you to be mindful of that and to work with us on that if at all possible. The window, it's still a couple of weeks out. So I mean, there still is time. In terms of the assessment, we will be hoping to have these assessed towards the end of August, so that the recommendations will go before the LCDC at their meeting, which is scheduled for the 9th of September. And then very quickly after that, we will be contacting the successful applicants, going through your letter of offer, going through exactly what your approval is for, and obviously working with you then in order to assist your drawdown and obviously your successful completion of the project. Again, working towards that date of early December in terms of your drawdown. And we will work with you on that, and we will support and facilitate you as much as we can. Again, as always, we are working to a pretty tight time frame ourselves when we receive applications. So again, we would be asking that incomplete applications or late applications, as always, they can't be considered. And again, that's just in the interest of fairness across the city. So, you know, we would ask you to have a look at it, either have a look at it online, have a look at the form, start having a think about your project or your proposal, have a discussion with your group, and obviously, you know, take your time and submit your application. And, you know, we look forward to getting, once again, a good range and a good mix of projects coming in from across the city.